Bitcoin and the whole crypto market crashed a lot since the announcement of the Bitcoin spot ETFs. So is this dump now over and are we on the way to recovery, or should we expect this crash to continue? I'm Andy and this is Crypto Like a Pro, a channel where I talk about everything crypto, NFTs and Web3 related. In mid-January, Bitcoin went up to almost 50k when Bitcoin spot ETF was announced. But since then, we had this rather significant pullback. And to be honest, personally, I think it's the usual case of buy the rumor, sell the news. And as you can see, we're already seeing some recovery. But I'm sure a lot of people are interested what is likely to happen next. Is this just a temporary move up and we should expect another pullback? Or was this the local bottom around 38,500 and we are now back on the way up towards either, well, hitting this target here or even going higher? Well, as always, the best thing to do is to zoom out and look at the longer time frame. And if you compare this pullback to the last few we had over the last, well, almost a year or so, this pullback was around 21%, 21.5%, which is quite significant. It was over $10,000. But if you look at those pullbacks that happened here, here, and here, they were actually all quite similar. If you look roughly to the bottom here, almost 21%. Then this one right here from the top to the bottom right here over, of course, much longer period of time, but that was just over 20%. And also this one here, also around 21%. So in fact, this is now fourth pullback in a sort of 20-22% range in the last year or so. And as we can see, well, we are already quite nicely recovering from the bottom of 38,500. We are now trading around 42, just over 42,000. So very healthy recovery. So it's quite reasonable to assume that this was a local bottom and we are now back on the way up. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that we'll now just simply go up. It's quite possible that we'll be trending sideways, similar to what was happening, for example, here. But it is perfectly reasonable to expect that we are now on the way to recovery. There is also another possibility that we may have another pullback back to this purple line, which is our bull market support band. I haven't really talked much about the bull market support bands, well, the last bull market. But basically the idea is that when the sentiment is quite bullish, Bitcoin tends to bounce back up from this level, which is our 20-week SMA, simple moving average, or some people prefer to use 21-week EMA, but they both tend to be quite similar. There will be a little bit of a difference, but nothing huge. And basically the idea is that when there are pullbacks, it's likely that we'll bounce from this line or around this line. We may break slightly below it, but then recover quite quickly. So it happened here, here, and here. And then when the sentiment changes to more bearish, this line becomes our resistance, as it's often the case. Whatever is support in a bull market or when the sentiment is bullish becomes resistance when the sentiment is bearish. So as you can see, we were rejected from this line a couple of times here. There were some rejections here as well. Here, that was still when we were in a very clear bear market, and that was the first attempt in a long time to break above this line. In fact, if we zoom out, you can see that we've been actually below this line for a very long time, right? The price crashed back in late 2021. And since then, except this one spike here, Bitcoin was trading below it until it broke out right here in early 2023, about a year ago. And all this indicator does is basically tells us that if the price of Bitcoin is above this line, it means that it's currently above the average price over the last 20 weeks. And 20 weeks is what? Roughly 5 months or so. So if the price is above average price over the last 5 months, it's reasonable to assume that we are in a quite bullish market. If it's below, it means that the sentiment is rather bearish. So it is quite an important level, and a lot of traders and investors look at this level to essentially judge what's likely to happen next. So it is quite possible that we may still have a dip and a bounce from this line. As you can see, this line is going up quite sharply at the moment. So even if it happens over the, let's say, 2 weeks from now, it will be well above 37K. So a pullback to this kind of level is still possible. So basically roughly where we were during this crash right here. Of course, another option is that we'll just keep trending up. Personally, like I said earlier in this video, I think this is just a typical buy the rumor, sell the news kind of scenario. A lot of people were waiting for Bitcoin spot ETF to be approved. So of course, it was a huge event. I mean, just looking at this chart, you can see how much the price of Bitcoin rose in anticipation of that happening. So a pullback like this, I think, is perfectly healthy, especially that, as I've mentioned, we had a couple of those over the last year, and it already looks like we are recovering quite nicely. And of course, with Bitcoin spot ETFs, while there is an expectation that there will be a huge amount of money coming into the crypto space thanks to those ETFs, it will not happen immediately, which is also maybe partially a reason for this sell-off. I wouldn't be surprised if some people were expecting that since the ETF was approved, suddenly a ton of money will pour into crypto and the price was just going up. And the price started coming down a bit, people started panicking and selling. I think that's very likely. With the ETF, I think we'll only see the true value of it or true impact of it over the next few months, even couple of years, when gradually there'll be more and more people investing in crypto through the ETF. And especially I think as the sentiment will be getting more and more bullish, and as it's always the case, there will be more in the media about crypto and more people will be getting into this space. People will be looking for the easiest possible way in, which for many of them will be via an ETF rather than buying crypto directly on an exchange. So just to sum it up, personally, I think that this was just a very healthy pullback and we are again on the way up. I wouldn't completely exclude the possibility that we may dip back to this level, to 20-week SMA, and I would be only concerned about short-term crypto sentiment if we dip below this line. So if we see Bitcoin going below sort of 37K or so and staying below that level for at least a few days and then struggling to break back above this line, well, that would signal that the market is turning short-term at least a little bit bearish. But as long as we are staying above this line or bouncing off it, I think we are in a really good position. And of course, the halving is coming very, very soon. It's only about 3 months away or so, which will hopefully help with driving the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies up. But what's also important to remember is that we will still see those pullbacks, especially as we are approaching halving. To be honest, I think we may see quite a lot of volatility around the halving because a lot of people are expecting it's like, okay, well, this is this big event and the price of Bitcoin will go up. But we've seen in the past that actually around the halving, price of Bitcoin may come down because there is that anticipation, again, buy the rumor, sell the news, that the price will be going up. So it may be climbing up a little bit, then we may see a bit of a pullback around the halving, and then it will start going up gradually over the next few months. And while that's personally, I think, largely irrelevant when it comes to Bitcoin, because those swings of, 10, 20% at this point are largely irrelevant. If you think what kind of price Bitcoin is likely to hit in the bull market, 150K or so. When it comes to altcoins, of course, that's much more important because a lot of altcoins get hit pretty hard if we see a dump like this happening. So for example, if we look at Cardano from, when was it? Around mid-January until that dump. I mean, that was almost 30% drop. We've seen also quite significant drops with a lot of gaming altcoins because, of course, they had those massive pumps. Well, it was quite likely when you see a move like this that the price will start coming down. It's good to see that they are recovering. I mean, here we have S-Fund. Altura is kind of similar. Illuvium, again, similar-ish pattern. I need to zoom in a bit. There you go. D-Race, also kind of similar, although this one is not recovering quite as nicely. So if you are investing now in altcoins, I think it's important to remember not to just go all in, because while the market is still quite uncertain, you can see that when this pump was happening, you could feel like you missed out on it, but actually we are now down when it comes to, for example, D-Race, from 75 cents all the way down to 26. I mean, that's like, what, over 60% drop. Of course, it's not as low as it was in a deep bear market, but still, there will be, I think, still plenty of opportunities to get into altcoins. That's why I think that it's still quite a risky strategy to be buying altcoins. And if you are buying them, just do it in really small chunks. So when those pullbacks happen, you still have some money so you can buy some more at a lower price point. Also, even though I have that 20-week SMA here on this chart, it's not really relevant when it comes to altcoins, especially smaller cap ones, because they don't really move the same way. They are much more volatile and they are much more driven by basically hype and not necessary. They don't move the same way as Bitcoin. That's what I'm trying to say. So what's my strategy and what's my outlook for the next weeks and months? To be honest, it's largely unchanged. I think that, as I said earlier, it was just a healthy pullback and the price of Bitcoin will continue climbing up, probably dipping here and there, but overall will continue climbing back up, especially with the halving coming up pretty soon. I think it's potentially good time to be buying altcoins if that's what your risk tolerance allows you to do, because it is an extremely risky strategy at this point. But with that being said, well, we are in those early days of the next crypto bull run. So of course, it's a moment when you can buy altcoins at a very, very good price. And yes, there is a high degree of risk involved, but if you pick correct altcoins, then, well, there's a potential to make a ton of money in the bull run. So of course, it is quite a good moment to do it, but you have to be really careful and be fully aware of the risks that come with it. And finally, as I said earlier, if you are buying altcoins, or in fact, if you're buying any cryptocurrency, it still makes sense to do it in small chunks of money, DCA. Don't buy everything in one go, because as you can see, we are still experiencing those really, really large swings. Bitcoin moves by around 20%. Some of the altcoins move by like 30, 50, 60% up and down. So it makes sense to wait for those dips, then buy some, and at least then you can average your price down a bit. So I think that's it from me for today. Overall, I remain bullish. I think the market is where I would expect it to be at this point in time. I've been saying this for a very, very long time that in those months shortly before the halving, the price of Bitcoin will be fluctuating a lot and it will be largely unpredictable. We may see some really nice spikes and overall it should be trending up, but also we should expect some pullbacks. And only after the halving, we should expect that gradual move up. But even then, there will be some significant pullbacks in the way. But that's something we'll be looking at, of course, in future videos. As always, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to learn more about crypto, check out my course. I have my main course, Crypto Like a Pro, and also my mini course, which is a great introduction to the whole of Web3 and to trading altcoins. You can find all the details in the description. I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.